It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael. I know a ghost story or two. Let's do this.
Hello and welcome back to Bigfoot Collectors Club. I'm watching as Bryce Johnson.
Hey, what's up, guys?
I'm Michael McMillan. I'm watching as Bryce frantically tries to get his headphones to work, and we're making poor Riley, our sound engineer. Oh, no, he's not happy with it.
Bro, cool as a cute. Oh,
you're good.
Are.
Oh.
There they are.
You looked like you were saying no.
A notch or two, and I'm golden.
Thanks, Riley. Shout out to Riley Bray, our sound engineer. We're off to a fantastic beginning. This is Bigfoot Collectors Club, the podcast where we tell stories from paranormal history and interview celebrity guests about their own personal paranormal encounters. This is episode 11, part...
Wow.
Huh?
Is that even right?
Oh, no, it's episode 10.
Oh.
I lied. It's episode... No, wait, it is episode 11. No, it's episode 10.
It's important to know that you wrote stuff down before this.
Yeah, I wrote it down, and I'm looking at it, and it's still wrong. This is episode 10, and our guest today is an actor and a comedian. You may have seen him in his hilarious shorts on Comedy Central and Funny or Die. This is part of our Crazy Ex-Girlfriend series for January. So you've seen him on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend as the bottom of the totem pole, George, in White Feather and Associates. Please welcome Danny Jolles.
Thank you so
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
That was pretty smooth.
It was a great.
That was a great liftoff.
It was a great liftoff. I mean, I think literally that started and there was immediately chaos to my right.
Yeah.
And but I also have always said I think the start of podcasts is always one of the weirdest things.
Yeah.
Because you're all talking, like having fun, and then there's a moment where everyone's like, "Okay, everyone, shut up now. We have to talk."
You know, Marlon Brando is famous for when he would start a scene, he would talk to the cameraman because he hated how everybody got really silent right before they yelled action. So he would actually be like, "Hey, Joe, how was your week? Just go into it. How was your kids are good, Joe?" Maybe that's not how he sounds, but they're good? Okay, great. Dorothy, you really took that purse? And then, but he was like, what he
Wait,
loved.
is Dorothy someone on the crew, or is that a line in the movie?
That's a line that I totally made up
Swings
that I
in.
feel like he might have said.
It's
Was he-
honestly very smart.
I
it's a
mean-
really good idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's bringing into how you really talk, like right into the scene.
I'm actually, he's kind of like the opposite of Christian Bale, the famous Christian Bale story where he yelled at the crew guy. And as terrible as that was, I kind of get it.
Right.
That has been a story that as I have acted more, I've gone more and more on Bale's side of that.
Yeah,
yelling.
because if you got an intense moment and there's just someone wandering around in the background, look,
I had someone walk on
you can't
me
be
once.
mean
Well,
to people.
apparently he was like a tweaker, like a lighting perfectionist. So he'd be like in the middle of a scene, and he'd be like just adjusting a gel, and and you're like, get the fuck out of my highlight.
Yeah.
No, I can't imagine seeing because I've had movement sometimes in the background, like behind someone, and every single time I'm like, man, I just looked.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this is why I fumbled so hard at the beginning, was because I was so distracted by Riley crawling around on the floor. He's shrugging. I feel like Riley is not allowed to say anything. It's not true. He just
totally
doesn't have a
is.
mic.
Oh, it's part of that's part of the podcast experience. Also, I believe
Yeah.
there's always a sound guy who is off mic and seemingly helpless as everyone talks about him.
You know what though? I love we've gotten off to a couple rocky starts, and we always keep them because it's like it's the cracks that let the light in. You know,
Oh,
it's
100%.
like, hey, we're not a perfectionist over
Well,
here.
you're looking for a natural feel to your podcast experience. To me,
Right,
you know,
totally.
you want to hear
Guys,
Our facts are loose, and
We've
we're loose.
said it before. We'll say it again. We're just in the clubhouse right
That's
now.
right. Just
You're
couple
part of
guys
the
in
club.
clubhouse hanging, man.
You know,
Yeah,
we're just
yeah.
hanging out in the clubhouse. So, Danny, speaking of letting the light in, have you ever had an experience that you cannot explain?
So I'm definitely on the side of, and we've talked about this on set.
Just a little bit.
We've talked about it a little bit because I'm a talker. We've talked.
Not as bad as some people.
Yes, but I'm definitely I'm definitely on the not a believer side of things. I think most things can be explained, and in general, and this is where I do have a joke online about this. So I've talked about this extensively in my act. The government can only keep X amount secret before they would fall
I would
apart.
agree with that.
You cannot tell me there is anything too big out there without me being like, and they all kept quiet. The entire government kept quiet.
It is
Particularly during this administration. If there was something crazy going on, we would know by now.
Well,
I love that.
I would say this because I agree with you, and that's a very funny joke. That's the best way to just kill
the
someone.
true ones
so much.
always are.
You know, there's some punchlines in the real telling of it that you guys would just adore.
But one of the points that was brought up to me, and I'm gonna blank right now on Dennis's last name, and that's a real bummer. But this guy, let's say Dennis Quaid. So I got a tour
right.
around Roswell, New Mexico, a couple years ago with Dennis Quaid. Not really Quaid, but we're gonna call him Quaid.
Sure.
There are people listening right now who are pissed at me because I can't. He's like a Roswell expert. He lives there. He gives tours. He knows everybody. He's interviewed like Jesse Marcel Jr. He's interviewed all the people. And one of the things he brought up about the Roswell cover-up was because it was post-World War II and America had just won the biggest war of all time, there was a much higher respect for the government, not only from the government side, but in the military side, but by the civilian side too. So if you were involved with something and the government came to you, or the Army came to you, or the Air Force and said, keep it a secret, this is national security, people respected it. So I think that there was perhaps a period in our nation's history around the time that these flying saucer things started to show up where people really treated it. It was in the middle, it's right after World War II, during the Cold War, pre-Vietnam, before people got cynical and they believed, okay, if Dad says we got to keep a lid on it, we'll keep a lid on it until we can figure out what kind of national security threat it was. I think that's an old generational.
No, we'll talk.
I would say that's true up till, because here's the thing.
I don't think it's that way anymore.
People give in to money.
Oh, sure.
So even at your most loyal to the government, the second you knew that if you went to TMZ and you had anything real, that's $2 million. Easy.
Yeah.
That's a $2 million payday for you. You're telling me none of these people ever wanted $2 million?
Well, but what if people are threatening their families?
I've always
That part could be true, but then we're in the threatening families world, which is intense. But
well, that's the world we probably live in.
I've always kind of
Probably.
subscribed to the government. We can never trust the government to have all the answers. And even if they did, then we still couldn't trust them with it. So, you know what I mean? I think you're absolutely right, and you make a great point. We depend too heavily on the government to handle all these extreme cases,
Well, we think so. I mean, we don't know what they're doing, but I've always been very much like I don't know. I think they're probably dealing with stuff we don't know about. It's one of my favorite fun thoughts I like to have is what we probably know 50% of what the government does, which means what if some of our worst presidents killed it on the other 50% and we'll never know? What if W stopped an alien invasion?
Right. Okay, so you're open to this stuff.
I'll have goofs. I'm a fun guy.
I'm a fun guy.
Listen,
That's
I'm
all
fun.
That is all this podcast is. It's a goof that likes to imagine.
To be clear,
what's possible.
and just to finish off my joke in it, I go.
This is going to be funny, by the way.
This is gonna be really funny. So everyone get ready, prepare yourself. This is gonna be good. I go. I'm not here saying the government doesn't have stuff and that they're not telling us. That'd be awesome. I fully believe they could be, but if they do have stuff, they can't tell us because we can't handle Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
So no, we can't be told about
If we
aliens.
can't handle Bieber, there's no way.
Just
no.
think about on a logistical level the amount of arguments we will have to have as a country.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Just
I've
on a
brought this
debate
up
level.
before. Also, the admission by the government itself that they cannot protect us from an alien invasion.
For sure. Which yes, you
and
brought
then
that up.
and then immediately they become irrelevant.
I love this conversation because this it segues perfectly into the case that I'll be talking about today. So, I can't wait. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, Danny, okay, so what about, we're just talking UFOs. What about ghosts? What about Sasquatch?
Ghost. Well, my sketch group is named Sasquatch.
Awesome. I love that.
Dude,
Yeah.
buried the lead.
Oh yeah. My sketch group is named Sasquatch Sketch Comedy. We just put out a sketch with Comedy Central. We're really trying our hardest.
That's awesome. Guys, you got to go find Sasquatch. You did just put up a very hilarious a press conference.
Yeah.
Very
Vlog.
funny, where you play a police captain at a press conference,
sure
and
do.
it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
No, thank you so much. It's
What do you have to Google to find that?
Comedy Central blogs will get you there.
Okay, cool.
But
Do it.
Yeah, we cornered the market. But Bigfoot. Bigfoot. I'm for sure not a believer, and I've looked extensively into that one. I've gone down rabbit holes, and I just refuse to believe that's the best photo we can get.
So you said you're for sure not a believer in Bigfoot?
Not a believer in Bigfoot.
How'd you get to name your sketch group Sasquatch?
We liked I like the name, and I think it's fun. I love that title, and we liked it, but I just for sure don't think that's possible. Ghosts I get into. Ghosts I'll if I may fuck with.
Sure.
And I enjoy a good ghost story. I've never personally experienced anything.
What if Bigfoot was a ghost?
Well,
we almost call this podcast "Bigfoot is a Ghost."
We really did.
really?
yeah,
yeah.
just to mess with people.
Yeah.
because
It's an interesting thought.
because he might be an interdimensional being.
Well, it breaks the paradigm of what you normally categorize a cryptid as, which is just like an undiscovered ape walking in the woods.
Yeah.
Right.
Which may or may not be true.
The more and more, I was actually having this conversation last night with the lady in my life, and we were talking
said that,
about.
yeah.
Actually, I was prepping for the show for today, and I was going back over the Dover Demon episode we just did with Burl a couple weeks back.
Yeah, great
and
episode.
then going back to the encounter that I talked about in episode 0, and the more I think about it, and more I've researched I did the research on the Dover Demon, I think what I saw was something that slipped in and out of this reality, and I'm starting to really come over to your side a little bit more.
Great. The
that
water's
this stuff
warm.
is interdimensional that's because you pee in the pool, dude. It's gross. Yeah, I don't know. So it's funny how this podcast for me is starting to turn into more of a personal,
A journey.
yeah, for lack of a
Me as
better
well.
term. And I even said, I was saying last night, I was like, of course I'm doing this podcast because I had something recently happen to me that I cannot explain.
And now, is there a way that I can hear this story either, because I'm sure your listeners have heard this story already?
In a nutshell,
In a nutshell. Give me a nutshell. version of
in the
this.
middle of the night, my dogs woke up barking like hell at the window of my living room. And I came out into the living room. It was 4:00 in the morning. And there was the silhouette of a being standing in the window with a long neck, skinny neck, elongated neck, and a inverted teardrop shaped head that looked literally like it was something out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
It was very
it moved its head. And
Slender Man-y.
it moved its head. It looked like an alien gray. Now, it was through the silhouette of the curtains.
Right.
And when it moved, it turned its head, and I could get a better look at the profile and see how it moved in a very human-like way, but it was for sure not a person standing in the window. The shadow, the silhouette was completely different. I turned on the light, I hollered, turned on the light, and it took off. And had my dogs not seen it first, I would have probably not believed my own eyes.
For sure. And can I just quickly say, and I know we are rehashing it, and I apologize to the listeners.
No, some people are tuning in for the first time right now.
I'm sure. And for those people, what does take off mean?
Like ran away, sorry.
And
Like
could you see a movement run away, or
Yeah.
do you just feel it go away?
No, I saw it dash away from the window very, very quickly.
Okay.
Like faster than a person and lighter on its feet than a person would go.
Okay. And
Now,
once
once it passed out of the frame of the window, I lost it. I ran out to the driveway to see if I could find him, and I couldn't.
Brave.
And then my next door neighbor walked
so
out.
brave.
My next door neighbor walked out.
Don't ever do that again.
My next door neighbor walked out, and I was like, dude, someone was just looking in my window. I didn't want to say alien. And my neighbor said, that is so fucking crazy because I got home from set an hour ago, and I've been watching Netflix in the back bedroom, and I have been feeling like something's been watching me this whole time. And his porch was wide open. His front porch door was wide open. So,
Well,
I didn't have any strange lights in the sky. There was none of the accompanying UFO type stuff that came along with it.
Sure.
So, honestly, my instinct was like, This was like a little fairy creature. Like this was something that is extraterrestrial, but may have not arrived here in a silver disc.
Yeah. See, Danny, there's kind of like two theories here. There's basically one, the extraterrestrial theory, and that's that what we're being visited is by creatures from another planet who are more intelligent, arriving in spacecraft, visiting us. Yeah. There's another side to the theory that, and I kind of gravitate towards this, is that what we are creating is some sort of conscious projection. I mean, because if you look at cases in the past, the UFO changes shapes, the aliens change size and dimension, all kind of with what's going on with culture and society and so the tales, they change and they move with society, they move with time, which would kind of like eliminate, like, if these like beings from outer space, are they really arriving in like metallic saucer discs?
Right.
That seems like old technology, right? So some proponents like, Jacques Vallée, and who was an original scientist on Project Blue Book, he was at first an extraterrestrial guy, and then he's like, maybe these things are coming from an interdimensional realm. And so he started to move towards that, saying that, like, are we projecting these things? Are they just as real, but not coming from another galaxy, but coming from what's here on Earth, us?
Well, a couple questions.
Sure.
as my style. Okay. So, well, first off, I would say, to me, the big changing thing comes a lot with what entertainment we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we match what we think aliens look like. When people say they see an alien, I think they tend to go with it look like, and then what they think aliens look like.
Right, whatever's in popular culture.
Absolutely.
And
so I think that changing, to me, when I hear the changing view of what an alien will look like, to me says this is what their TV being said. Michael?
Perfect example of what happened to me.
Yes, exactly.
My first thought was, that's what I have been told an alien looks like.
Right.
That was my first thought. It was so I've said it before, it was so on the nose, obvious that
Yeah.
I didn't even scare me at first. I literally, that looks like an alien from a Steven Spielberg movie.
Well, I did the Topanga Canyon UFO, and the guy literally described it as like, in that movie, Third Encounters, it looked just like that. Bless you. A UFO coming through the canyons, So, yeah, it's very strange. A lot of these things are just ahead of where we think technology should be.
Right.
The beings look kind of like what's in the popular culture right now.
And in the Middle Ages, they were elves and fairies.
That's right.
And
That's
this is where I get into the brain being incredibly manipulative.
You're right.
And that's where I get very tricky on these things.
But what about my dog's brains?
Well, and
my
now,
dog saw the same thing.
Let me get even.
I mean, we're going off dogs here, and I love dogs, and everyone doesn't do, but I do not know if they're a reliable witness here.
Well, now, how about military pilots?
I just don't know.
How about radar pings? How about 3 verifiable triangulated radar pings with eyewitness testimony and eyes on the prize? Would that do it for you? How about if UFOs landed on the White House lawn?
Sure, yeah, if they landed on the White House lawn. But I need a picture?
What if I told you they practically did?
I'd say, tell me that tale.
That's exactly what I'm going to tell you today.
So before we move on to that, Danny, what I'm getting from you is you're like someone who's on a diet, a strict diet, but loves to taste the dessert a little bit. Just a little bite.
I think it is incredibly dangerous, and this is for politics, for everything, to go, this is the way I think, so I don't listen to the other side.
I love that.
I always think, be it on a very simple level of politics, be it to extraterrestrial stuff. The idea of just because I don't believe in this stuff means I'm not even going to listen. I'll listen to any story, and I'll try to understand it, and that's how I grow, and it makes my opinions more intelligent if I continue to be a denier.
What about when it comes to extraterrestrial politics?
Well, then I say I will not hear any of it.
No, you know what? You're the perfect you're the perfect subject of how we should be advancing towards how we feel about this phenomena. We need to be more open to it, and we need to get our science involved in it.
Yeah. And just because I at the end, and I probably at the end will still go, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's great.
But it doesn't hurt me in any way to hear those things. I don't understand why people are afraid to hear things. I've gone down every rabbit hole on YouTube I can about things. Usually at the end I go, Seems like a lot of people going, I saw it real fast.
You know
Seems
what?
like that's a collective.
Isn't it like a particle, right? As soon as we like quantifiably observe it, it changes or it becomes solid. You know what I mean? And when we're not observing it,
there's no such thing as being an objective observer.
That's
the
right.
act of observation affects the subject
In and
the
of itself.
outcome.
Well, and you just have to know. I mean, the mind is so manipulative.
it absolutely is.
You know, there's sleep paralysis with witches on top of people and all that stuff, and it's explainable.
We've talked about that.
We did, yeah.
Did you guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
I find
We're
that.
trying to unify a theme here. We're trying to solve the whole puzzle.
Well, it feels like I come in here too late because it feels like everything.
Episode
You're
5.
helping us.
Episode 5, Kevin Kirkpatrick. Look it up. We talk about the succubus.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so that stuff, like, that's a lot of the mental stuff. So that's that's always my quantifiable. Just because a person says they saw something, I don't think people are lying. Mm-hmm. It's as much as, man, your mind can be manipulated. I have memories from
You may be
childhood
right.
that straight up my parents are like, that did not happen to you. And I'm like, all right. I thought it did, but
We
probably.
should've
You
talked
just
about
said you
that.
weren't a liar, and yet you're making up stories as a child.
And that's the tough part, you know. I used to have, I've always had this like thought about this like one memory I have as a kid
Tell us.
that I'm like, oh no, it's so this isn't like a fun like extraterrestrial thing. This is just like I went to summer camp, and I have this memory of one night. It was one of the fun camp activities is you would go out with your counselor, and they said there were these animals, these little like rodents that infect the area. And so what we do is we take these burlap sacks and we catch them, we throw them into this fire.
Oh, good
And so we
God.
spent the whole night running around with our counselors, catching these animals and throwing them into the fire. And I have that memory in my head, and I go, there's no way that's a real memory,
I'm
for sure. But I have a distinct memory of it.
stupefied.
We like every episode, every guest who says they don't have a story,
it.
they bring something fucked up in here that we're
Well,
going to get to the bottom of.
But
it.
it's not even like it's a.
Did
obvious-
were you
obviously-
taken on a snipe hunt?
Did somebody implant that memory?
So I think, to me, my best guess is it was these are kids, let's put them on this adventure. And so obviously we weren't actually catching animals because I never saw the animal. I would just see them and be like, we got one.
Right.
But then you go into what counselor approved this activity
And also,
for children.
How did you get on board just burning unseen animals?
Right.
So
they throw a little
quickly?
magic fire
Well,
in the
just as a
fire.
reminder about your boy Danny, I grew up in Virginia and I was a little bit more open-minded to that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And we were
burning-
told they were dangerous. We were told
right.
these animals were dangerous.
This is a snipe hunt. This is an old-fashioned snipe hunt. Making
Yes.
a kid go hunt an imaginary animal to get him out of your hair.
Or a vision.
I did not
quest.
know what the phrase snipe hunt meant.
I thought you were going to tell us that your parents told you never went to camp as a child.
Oh, no. I definitely went to camp. I'm a Jew from Virginia. We go to camp. But I, for sure, don't. That's like the kind of memory where I'm like, there's something in my brain that
Weird.
doesn't add up there.
Totally.
And you never saw one thing or experienced one thing that you went, what was that?
1,000 times. But the thing is, when I go, what is that? I go, probably you. I don't go, and that's just the way I work. I go, when I see like I'm sleeping and like a door opens, like I have like a memory in college of like my door opening and then
Okay.
like a person being there and then closing, and I go, and at first you remember things like, there's a fucking ghost.
Are doors open?
And then you go, or any one of my dumb roommates walking in the wrong room.
Right. No.
You know what I mean? Like, and they're all like, no, I didn't get up, but it's like,
I think we all do that. I think
You
we
know
all
what I mean?
explain the
I'm an
stuff
explainer.
relatively. Yeah.
I'm an explainer. I'm a guy who goes, probably that.
Right.
I'm skeptical of your skepticism, frankly.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that. And
welcome.
thank you. No,
and
Danny.
Michael,
No.
and
Thank you.
Michael, if I may, thank you.
No, thank you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Bryce tell us the High Strangeness story of the week.
Sweet. Hey guys, Bryce Johnson here. Each week we post exclusive photos with our guests and great visual aids on Instagram at Bigfoot Collectors Club and on Facebook and Twitter at Bigfoot_C Club. Check them out. You don't want to miss them. Thanks for listening.
And we're back.
We're back.
And it's time for High Strangeness. Bryce,
Yes.
You've kind of set us up here.
I did set you up.
I'm very excited about this
Yeah,
story.
Danny, you're from Virginia, right?
I sure am.
That's so cool because this is where it kind of all started.
Oh, I know.
And I want to say, too, before you get started, because I know what you researched, and I know what I researched for next episode.
Yep.
And you know what? We kind of have a mini two-parter in this tale here. They're very complementary.
There's a correlation.
I got excited when I started doing my research, and I went, oh, my gosh.
No, you know.
There's some crossover
Gosh,
here.
doing this whole BCC podcast with you, I've actually doing all this new fun research. I've kind of like put together a few little dates and times that seem to like match anyway. Anyway, let's bust right into it. So this is called the Washington invasion.
Oh.
And it's exactly that because it basically is an in-force show of UFOs over the Capitol, over White House, triangulated by multiple radar operators and eyewitnesses on the ground. So basically, in the summer of 52, an incident at Patrick Air Force Base, this is kind of where it all starts. Patrick Air Force Base is off the Atlantic coast of Florida, and at the time it was the guided missile proving ground. So these are rockets that are, lock on through radar. And we'll touch more on that later, but basically they say there was a report came in that basically this is where it all started. This was the beachhead of a full-scale UFO invasion. One of the scientists working for an unknown agency, right? He warns this guy named Captain Ruppelt.
Question.
I know, it's yes, go ahead.
How is this guy? This guy's a source in this story, but
Yeah,
we
he
don't know
is.
what agency. He
No,
is.
we don't. So I actually put in parentheses MIB. Have you ever heard of the Men in Black?
I feel like there was a movie. About
There
that.
might have been a movie. But, anyway, so he's a scientist at Patrick Air Force Base. He's working on the radar lock missile
Is
guidance
this all out
system.
of Blue Book? A lot of this stuff?
Well, yeah, so
And
anyway.
what's Blue Book?
Project Blue Book.
Project Blue Book was a government-initiated program ran by scientists and astronomers to gather all the UFO reports and basically document them,
Okay.
Some
And
people think it was a false program to kind of
Well, it may have started that
off.
way, but Jay, Hynek,
Disinformation.
right? But they all ended up believers. Anyway, that kind of leads into my story. This guy, Captain Ruppelt, he was the head of the Project Blue Book division. He wrote a book on this subject. But anyway, so it basically starts June 19th, 1952, around 11:40. Two separate radars at D.C. National, which is now Ronald Reagan Airport. They pick up 8 targets south of Andrews Air Force Base. 8 targets, right? Literally on their scope. Now, other planes in the area, commercial airline pilots, spotted the same targets. Now, a third tower at Andrews Air Force Base also picked up the targets. They send out 2 Starfire jets, interceptor jets, to go see what they could find. The 2 jets get there, they see the light, and they say as soon as they get there, the light basically just turns off, right? Just like that. A few hours later, a radar operator sees another object on his scope. As soon as the jets get back, right, they pop back up. And they place it right over Andrews Air Force Base. And they call Andrews. They're like, are you guys seeing this? And they're like, yeah, we got it on our radar, and I've got visual. I can see it. It's a huge orange fiery sphere, right? That's what he says, direct visual contact, right? So now we're talking like visual and technical confirmation from multiple sources. Now, no one bothers to tell the Air Force intelligence, by the way, right? So the next day, the newspapers, all of them, they run basically these headlines that report jets chasing UFOs over Washington, D.C. Now, when the newspapers call the Air Force about it, they can honestly say, we don't know. We don't know.
And this is the start of the biggest recorded U.S. UFO flap in American history. This whole summer of 1952.
It's one of the biggest
Gets
ones.
crazy.
I mean, so before this, they were seeing UFOs all up along these military bases. And this isn't the first time UFOs and military bases have been correlated, right? So now, basically the shit hits the fan. The newspapers run this stuff. And people are like, what is going on, right? Even the president is like, can I get some answers here? Harry Truman, he was in his last term. A week later, they show up again. On July 26 at 10:30, a radar operator at D.C., he spots a loose formation of slow-moving lights spread out in a wide arc above Washington. He calls Andrews again. They confirm the targets, and they ask the reporters in the tower to leave the room. They scramble 2 intercept jets. Now, for the skeptics and we'll get to that later, but you don't scramble jets when you don't think there's something out there, right? They scramble 2 more jets. Once again, as soon as they arrive on the scene, the lights disappear. They go back to the base the UFOs return. They ask a lone F-94 who's in the area to get a visual. He does. He gets a clear look, and he even requires a radar lock several times to lock on the target. As soon as he does, the object goes boop, just moves away. So he's saying at low slung at about 100 miles an hour, he gets a lock, and then boom, it darts off at what the radars also confirm to be 7,000 miles per hour. That's insane. So basically, where am I here? Let me just turn my little report here. Another formation of targets appear at DC National, Andrews, and Langley. They all get the locks, right? So this is three
I went
separate...
to Langley High School, just for a fun fact.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's triangulated report. They scramble more jets.
In a story of UFO encounters, the fun fact is where you went to high school.
Just to be clear, guys, that is my high school. I know it well.
Well, so they scramble more jets to get these things. Now, this time, the UFOs, they sense that they feel like they're coming. And so they basically do a whole night, like 4 hours of cat and mouse with the UFOs. The next day, they have to debrief the pilots. And they're all kind of depressed and anxious. And they're saying, we couldn't outrun them. We couldn't put a lock on them. We couldn't shoot them. Like, what the fuck is going on? The pilots were pretty rattled. All the major papers, again, report that flying saucers had outrun our jets over the skies of national capital. You imagine a headline like that running today? No, it wouldn't happen. And I'll tell you why. It's probably because of what happened after this case, Anyway, so Captain Ruppel, he gets bombarded by reporters, and under pressure, he basically, literally bombarded. This was chaos. He basically... He says, the explanation I'm working with until I can investigate further is that these were all weather-related phenomena. He said it. He dropped the bone right to the press, not on purpose, but because he didn't want to say what he thought it was, right? About a week later, the Air Force Intelligence Director, General John A. Sanford, he holds a press corps meeting. Now, basically, and Mike, you've said this before, fearing the American people would panic, he was basically unprepared to tell them that the skies had just been invaded by craft that were able to penetrate right to the center of our nation's government. Weather anomalies that confused radar and the pilots? I don't think so.
Man.
Yeah. So this is a show of force. This is like, hey, we're here. And I also want to put into context, this is at a heightened time. We were right on the cusp of a war with North Korea.
And it's during the Cold War.
Backed by Russia and China. Sound familiar? And so it was a hot time on a global scale of war. And these things show up right on the door.
And this is what, 6 years after the end of World War II, 6 or 7 years after the end of World War II.
Yeah, that's right. 5 years after Roswell. When
and
everyone
then
was
5 years after Roswell. And it's funny because this goes back to what Danny was saying earlier. The flying saucer thing had been a really big cultural phenomenon after World War II because of stories of pilots seeing these things.
That's right.
That they called that's what Foo Fighters were, weren't they? That's what they nicknamed Foo Fighters, right?
Yeah. There was a book and a movie, a popular movie, #1 at the time, of like the return of the saucers. So yes, in popular culture, it was very topic because people were seeing them all over.
Yeah.
They were reporting them up and down the coast. This is just the incident over D.C. There's also collaborated reports with other interceptor jets out of Michigan, out of Virginia, that also scrambled interceptors to no avail.
All summer long, this whole summer of 52,
right.
People were seeing stuff.
Yeah, basically what I want to get to is...
Okay.
Go ahead.
But they never came down at any time. Because they just wanted to chill in the sky.
Well, I have a story for next week about one that did come down.
Yeah, and you know what? Bill Burns, in his book, Aliens in America, he says that after that press conference, when basically the Air Force said weather anomalies, the newspaper reported it, sounded sensible, the American people bought it, and it's been the same thing to this day. But let me tell you something, those UFOs, they didn't stop just because that's what the press corps said. No, they kept coming. And as a matter of fact, there were reports of jets being shot down, targets being acquired. They shot, and in fact, there was a guy who wrote a book, Frank Fascino Jr. in 2007. He said, yeah, with our radar-guided locked missiles, we were able
I'm going to be talking a lot about Frank Jr. next episode.
To take a couple of them down. So
we took a couple UFOs down.
Yeah, because remember, they were hanging out at Patrick Air Force while we were working on our guided missile system. So in that summer, once we got it going, They said, that the chases continued all throughout that year. They took down a few of our jets. We took down a few of theirs.
And all this was never reported.
No, it was reported. But
The newspapers reported it as pilot test crashes. But all this, the America bought whatever the newspapers fed them because the Air Force had lied to the American public. First time, big time. We don't know if they were told to do so, or we don't know if they just couldn't handle telling the American public, yeah, so we're in the middle of a war, and also there's UFOs.
They stopped doing that at Roswell. They figured out after Roswell, when the first crash happened, they reported it. The Air Force base, the Army base in Roswell, reported it to the local paper that they had recovered a flying saucer.
Yeah.
And then once the top people in the Army found out, the generals, actually this admiral, I forget his last name, he went, you call the paper back, you tell them not to run that story, and it was too late. So the next day they came up with the weather balloon cover story.
And Danny, you were talking about this. These are real people whose jobs are on the line.
It's national security.
One of the pilots recants his story. A few of the radar operators recant their story. I wonder why. But they were later found, and later they all said, no, you know what? There was a major general. He came in, and he took us all into a room where we collaborated on consensus that our radars were picking up solid metallic objects that we saw with our own eyes. So that was a consensus amongst the radar operators. These are guys working at military bases. Now, to put a cap on this, after this happened, the CIA feared, they were worried that an enemy nation could deliberately flood the U.S. with false UFO reports, causing mass panic and allowing them to launch a sneak attack. So the CIA asked them to form what's now known as the Robertson Panel, basically headed by a scientist guy named Robertson, where they get in a room for a couple days and they watch all the videos, and they're like, yeah, it's all weather anomalous. And so they basically, they basically put the kibosh on any, deliberate UFO reporting. And they were also told, and so now we're part of the problem, relegate it to media and entertainment.
Yep.
So here we are talking about it, like dishing it up for them.
Dude, we're dropping truth bombs here.
Truth bombs!
Hold that thought.
Yes, sir.
Because we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to ask Danny, what the hell was that?
Yeah, hell today.
What the
tomorrow.
fuck was that?
I'm happy to answer it.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Bryce Johnson from Bigfoot Collectors Club. Listen, if you have a paranormal story, we want to hear it. Write to BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com with your paranormal encounter, and we just might read it on a future episode.
And we're back. BCC, episode 10. Danny Jolles coming in with his opinion on this government UFO flap of 1952. Danny, what the hell was that?
Sure. Well, first off, and I just said this, I will say again, it was beautifully said to the point where I really did feel uncomfortable interrupting it.
Great. Thank you.
It was very nice.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, but so again, there's no explanation versus non-explanation as much as there's just like, okay, so there was a lot of facts said there that we just said as facts. Mm-hmm. So we said those as a lot of those were just like they shot him down and then the aliens fell down, blah blah blah.
Totally.
And the government said this isn't true, but this happened, blah blah blah. So now I'm going to do my
Danny. This is the lore
for sure, but I'm now going to take my step back and go, what? So the government said that didn't happen, but where are we getting our intel on this other than this blue book? Is there any place else where we're getting this intel from?
No, that's a solid and great question.
Thank you so much.
Yes, listen.
I fucking knew it when I asked.
Captain Ruppelt, who was a captain in the Air Force Army, he also headed the Project Blue Book department. He wrote a book 4 years prior, gathered the witnesses, and put it on testimony in his book of basically that laid out timeline-wise and corroborated with factual evidence what had happened. So all leading up to that press corps panel. So once they documented that, everybody knew now that press corps panel held by General Samford, they all put it in context, and they knew that was a complete lie to the American public.
And a lot of these sources come from newspaper articles that were printed in the day that are still available.
Right. And commercial airline pilots also corroborated 3 separate UFO sightings from the towers. They called their commercial airlines pilots who were out there too, saying, "Do you have eyes on this?" One pilot said, "I see it. It's right next to me. There it goes."
And there are guys, there are writers who were like us, but more like better men than we are because we just have a podcast. But they would go out and investigate these stories and find, even 10, 12 years later, 20 years later, the retired Army guys and the retired Air Force guys and go, hey, I found your name in this article or this report. Can you talk about what happened then? So,
and these guys did.
Yeah, and they do. A lot of them will after they retire, and then some of them. There's a lot of like deathbed confessions and a lot of this stuff. Like people going, by the way, I did see that stuff.
But you're talking about exactly what we're talking about. It's now relegated to just like, oh, that really happened. And you know what? This is factual stuff. This is stuff that really happened.
At least this incident happened.
And you know
what the explanation is.
Well, let's delve
definitely
into that.
Something that happened.
Their explanation was weather anomaly. And you know what? The actual Weather Bureau actually said, you know what? We refute that. They came out and printed a public statement saying, we refute that report because what they were saying was weather inversion. It was happening all summer long, June, July, August, weather inversion. It's when the temperature's hotter up high and the radar bings off and maybe picks up like a boat sailing down the Potomac.
And again,
and this was early radar.
No,
which is worth saying.
This is good radar, post World War II. So this is,
I mean, it's
and these are military.
it's amazing radar.
It won us the war.
Yeah, it won us the war, but
for sure. But it won us a war against other people with the same technology.
It's true.
Yeah, no, but I forgot.
That's why we can't beat the aliens. But again, this all comes down to too. Again, in this era, we don't get it because we live in the time that we live now. Mm-hmm. Back then, when the government said to the American people it was weather, that gave the American people to go, okay, I believe it, and they brush it off.
But you know, Danny, this supports your claim that the government, there wasn't some big conspiracy like being held, like a cabal of like government guys going, what do we do with this thing? Maybe there was, but really it was just like laid out. It was like
public relations.
What the fuck do we do?
Oh, 100%.
You know,
and again, I stand by that point forever. Of if any of this is true, I don't just think they would do that. I agree with them. Mm-hmm. I agree with the government.
Support the decision.
Yeah, that's the correct decision to make then. We cannot handle that kind of stuff.
So what if you were pressed and we're pressing you? I'm pressing you so closely and tightly, Danny.
Yes.
I don't mind it at all.
We want answers.
What would you say happened based on just hearing the story? What do you think happened?
Well, this is where you get into we don't know. So on both sides, we don't know. I would say that to the people who say it was a weather anomaly, I would go, are you sure? And then I would say to you, are you sure? Because what we have here is a lot of different opinions about what happened that night. And as much as we're going, well, this version of the story is correct because it was said, by this guy in this book, I also do think you are discrediting the other statements that were made. You're basically saying everybody who made a statement against your side was lying, which is dangerous because they are saying the same thing about you. So to me, it's a lot of people saying a lot of different things happened. The truth is, I guess we'll never know fully, and that's the frustration part, is like, man, I wish there was some sort of documentation of any sort. And the problem is, like, there just doesn't seem to be.
Well, Danny, you bring up such a great point. And
Thank you so much.
The point is the power of disinformation. Mm-hmm. And so many of these wonderful cases, whether they're, a cryptid walking through a sandbar in Bluff Creek or whether, it's a UFO, like coming down.
Cryptid?
A bipedal, like a Bigfoot,
Oh, got it. Okay.
But once you get a little bit of misinformation there, surrounded by some facts and then some local lore, it's lost to history. And you're absolutely right. We'll never get those definitive answers. And it really becomes an incident lost in time. And all we can do is kind of look back and purview the materials that are out there.
For sure. And that's where I get very into, like, where are the visuals?
Yeah.
Because visuals are not argued with. You can't argue with a visual.
They do it all the time. And they argue with visuals all the time. Like, exactly. Here's my point. Here's a case of UFOs literally flying over the White House, and we're saying
there were photos of that.
There were
too.
photos. Now the popular ones are not the photos.
Right.
You'll look up 52 White House one, and you'll see a popular photo. It's not the one that was done by a BBC documentary that took the lights from the.
But they reported this in the newspaper.
Just on a side note, I can't stand these documentaries that just take it upon themselves to like build up clearly fake stuff. They did that about that mermaid.
Oh, that
shit,
mermaid stuff
and
was
it
really
fucking
dumb.
confused
Yeah.
so many people.
You know what?
It drove me nuts.
Conspiracy. Discovery put out some of the most amazing, mind-boggling, documentaries, and then they fucking put out that thing.
Yeah.
And then just like we talked about, everybody goes, "Wait, does that mean everything else is bullshit?
Yeah.
What am I dealing with now? A little bit of disinformation.
I get the idea of the entertaining aspect of like, what if?
No, but it was
what if-
bullshit. That guy was an actor, and for instance, Russian. Remember my on the Dyatlov Pass incident?
Yep.
Discovery Channel did something called The Russian Yeti: The Killer Lives, and you know what? That was excellently done. Those were real people. Those were real interviews. That was really done. And then they do something like the fucking Mermaid Show, where they hire a guy, they fake footage, and you're going. Now where are we left?
I think that's
Now
fine
where
if
are
you
we
present
left?
it as fiction.
Oh yeah, but
Right.
they at the very
Yeah.
end had a tiny disclaimer.
I was pissed too. Yeah.
I agree. No, I saw that and I was like,
because that could be that's a
so
cool
that
fantasy
well, that
movie,
confuses
but-
a lot of people.
yeah.
But you know what?
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
now History Channel has taken that baton, and they are the ones running some amazing programming, like The Curse of Oak Island. Have you ever heard of that?
I need to watch that. You told me about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
longest running treasure hunt in history.
Well, we're never going to figure out what happened that night.
No. We'll
never
or the
figure out
night
what
after.
happened,
But
yes.
next week, I have a story that is going to be that possibly theorizes what happened to one of those crafts that were shot down.
Yeah, did they down one? Did they possibly hit one of those, but not destroy it? But did it land somewhere?
Yeah, we'll find out.
That would definitely be an exciting thing. Is there video of it?
No, it was 1952.
Come on,
They didn't
man.
have a video camera.
Photos?
They did have it was written about in the local paper. It was investigated, and there was more military involved. So we're going to wrap up our High Strangeness and our What the Hell Was That? And we'll be right back with our goodbye to Danny.
Hey guys, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Bigfoot Collectors Club and on Twitter at Bigfoot_C Club.
And we're back. Bigfoot Collectors Club.
Yeah.
I keep repeating it. You know you're listening
It's
to the
okay.
show.
I just got told to save it for the podcast.
Yeah, you guys are talking about alien autopsy.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I'm
know.
talking about with the podcast thing, where it's like we're having a conversation and it's just like quiet. We have to have a conversation again. And you're like, I was really curious about that. We're gonna revisit it in a second.
Yeah.
Danny, this is the collectors portion of the show.
That's right.
Oh.
Did you ever collect anything, or do you collect anything?
As a kid, I was big into Magic the Gathering and Warhammer 3000.
Whoa. Is Warhammer a card game?
Warhammer is a figurine game, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's a like one of those games. I would say it's
Tabletop.
yes, I would say it's a level below D&D.
Okay.
But you have to make the figurines. A big part of it was arts and craftsy,
Painting
that's
in and
cool,
all that
which I
stuff.
liked. Yeah, but
Did you have a little studio in the basement with one of those magnifying glasses that you could look through to put the little
I bought all
details
this
on the
glue.
leather straps of the boots of the orcs?
They give you this big box and you put together all together and you paint them and you glue them and it was really fun. And I had a little.
Did you have a favorite one you were really proud of?
I
or-
had an orc army, I believe, and it was beautiful.
Who was the commander in your orc army?
I don't remember.
Oh.
I don't remember exactly how the game. I remember that making the figurines was awesome, and then the game itself was a big letdown. The game wasn't that good,
Right.
and I was very frustrated by that. So I collected those, lots of sports stuff.
Did you have a big setup tabletop with like trees and rivers and like little landscapes?
No, me and my friend
castles?
Me and my friend Christian and Matt, we would play, and so he had a downstairs area where we could really like build up our game.
That's cool.
But you can't really play alone.
No.
So there was no real point to making your own little thing. You had to have it transportable to someone else to play the game.
I mean, I would want to do it just to make dioramas and stuff.
Yeah.
I love doing setups with my action figures.
Right.
as a
I'd be a
kid.
good MC, like a master of ceremonies. Like, maybe I could really get you into it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're a big sports guy
I am
too.
a big
I know
sports
this
guy as
from
well.
you won't stop talking about sports on
do
set.
love
At a
talking-
musical theater comedy, he's always talking about sports.
Well, Scott brings it out of me, and I just tend to. I do love sports, so yeah. So I also collect a lot of sports things in my ever continuing thing of being a walking contradiction of
Yeah.
myself, of being a Warhammer 3000 player
Aw.
and a sports guy.
That's
in
amazing.
musical
That's what
theater.
makes you so interesting.
It makes me real
Well, Michael,
confusing from
what are you-
afar.
what are you holding?
So
Yeah,
I
Michael,
brought
I
in
can't help
something
but
for
notice your
show and tell today. I was out Christmas shopping yesterday for my nephew. And I came across this, and I just gave away the fact we're in the time machine a little bit. It's January for you, the listener, but we pre-tape some of these because we got the holidays coming up.
I'm going back home.
And I found this, and I didn't even skip a beat. I picked it up, and I carried it straight to the register and bought it. It's a Hoth theme from Star Wars.
Oh my God.
Wampa and Luke's Snow Globe.
Holy sh!
By Think Geek.
Wow.
And this is like, you see this, you have to buy it.
Oh yeah.
When Mike,
that's so cool.
When Mike
I'm a big
said,
Star Wars nerd.
When Mike said,
we
we
all
can't do a toy show because I would spend too much money, this is probably why. This is beautiful.
That's so cool.
I'm like, I want to keep it up past Christmas.
It is.
It's not necessarily Christmas themed. It's the Wampa Cave.
A beautiful snow globe.
We'll put a picture of this up. You'll see Danny holding it. It'll be on Instagram.
With the
It'll be on
Hotha
cover
monster.
for this. Yeah,
That's so
with
cool.
Wampa. And the Wampa is the Yeti of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
For sure. I
basically.
think a lot of people in the Star Wars universe don't believe it's real.
Right.
They're like, sure, intergalactic battles, but I'm sorry, this guy just hangs you upside down.
You know, Han Solo was like, I didn't see him, kid.
Right.
I just found you in the snow.
No, I cut off an arm. It's back there.
Sure,
And they go back there, and so your bill's like, so nobody got a photo of it. At no time, there's a photo.
R2, did you get an image? Beep boop, beep boop.
R2 was back in the hangar.
Right, I know.
And the only other witness was the Tauntaun, and that
He ain't
got it.
talking.
yeah,
He ain't talking.
there's a dead Tauntaun on the snow globe too.
No.
Great. So before we wrap up, Danny, where can people find you?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, first off, this was a wonderful. This was one of my.
We loved having
This was
you.
one of my favorite podcasts I've done.
Thanks.
Oh, and
You're
Danny,
welcome
if I may?
back anytime.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
We welcome back your brand of cynical skepticism anytime.
No,
this
totally.
This was genuinely a very fun one. Because as I said beforehand, I do not like doing podcasts most of the time. I can't stand them.
All right.
So this is like one of the few I've actually been like, I enjoyed this. This was like a good one.
Good.
Tell all your friends.
I will. I'll let them all know. I'll post it. You can. So this is coming out in January. So mine is Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I'm a small part of New Season of Love. I'm
cool.
Will be doing stand-up. Just go to DannyJolles.com, JOLLES, and that'll have some of my touring dates, and I'll be around and about. And also just, say hello to me on Twitter and stuff. I don't know.
Great. And Bryce, you have a show coming up, don't you?
Yes, it'll be on True TV, Bobcat Goldthwait's Misfits and Monsters. So look for that.
Great. And I'm on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend right now. And I think that's about it. This was a great show,
This was
guys.
so
Thank you so
fun.
much. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to have not only our next part in the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend month, but we're also going to have a follow-up to Bryce's story today. Before we leave, I want to thank, as always, Riley Bray, our mystical sound engineer. He's given us the quiet fist pump. And Lotuspool Records gave us our music. It's from the song Come Alone by Suneaters. Make sure to go to lotuspool.com and check them out there. They have a lot of great stuff. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Did I say come alone? I did say come alone, right? Cool. I always fuck things up, even when I got it right in front of me.
You always want to end a plug with a solid. Wait, was that it?
Wait, was that right?
Oh, no.
It happens, man.
Did we get that?
I just want to talk about Wampas.